Welcome to the Elite Power Moves podcast, where we unlock the secrets to level up in all areas of life. I'll be interviewing some of the world's top performers in their fields so that you can uncover and learn the strategies that have led to their overall success and apply it to your own life. Welcome to the Elite Power Moves Powerful People podcast. Today I've got Jeff Morgan, and I'm going to ask some of the questions we all want to know. Jeff, I feel like you're the equivalent to Australian David Goggins. What traits would you say defined you as a great leader and person?
I definitely say discipline. Having discipline, and obviously David Goggins the same, and all those that are successful in life, discipline's the one most important one. Now I take that back to my father. 100 left foot kicks, 100 right foot kicks as a kid playing soccer. And in an area where rugby league was huge, so to have that discipline, that rolled off into my life, making my bed, all of those little simple things back then. And I realized, I used to think, why am I doing this for? This was a young kid. I'm going to sleep in it tomorrow. Who cares in my head? But I didn't realize the huge value and benefit it brought to my life as I got older and started to realize, hey, you've got a great skill. You're able to show up to what you say you're going to show up. You're able to do and follow through what you're going to do because of the discipline that you had from when you were a kid. And I then looked at the kids that didn't have that as a kid that I grew up with as an example, and respectful to them as well. But I just realized that we're two totally different people, and the lives and trajectory that we end up sort of on a path of went down the path of how we were built during those formative years and during those younger years.
Yeah. Jeff, knowing time is our most valuable resource, and we hear a lot of busy people saying, I'm busy, which leads to not being available, and also saying, I don't have time, which means we're not present. How important is it for us to change our language to rewater our subconscious beliefs to equal more fulfillment?
I love what you just said. Change your language. I did a whole module on this in our coaching programs because how we speak to ourselves is what we become. What you tell yourself, you become. And the same principle where you can't be what you can't see, the same thing happens when you speak to yourself a particular way. So I had to reframe that whole sentence. And it happened to me serving my last sentence down in Melbourne, 7 years for a bank robbery there. And I had a corporate, white-collar corporate who was sitting in that space with myself. I don't even label him a criminal in the sense, even though he has been charged and so forth. I just seen it as another human being who had made a choice that was wrong, right? We can then get that opportunity in that space to learn, grow, and prosper. And you can choose to, deepen and broaden your criminal behavior, or you can choose to start to shift that behavior. I got to a pain point. I got sick of 20 years worth of jail. And it was this moment of changing the language to change the outcome through a prison yard. That corporate walked across and we spoke pig Latin. And it was to, obviously evade police and do the things that we wanted to do without detection, right? He comes across the yard, he starts trying to speak pig Latin, and he's got these gang signs going on. And he's a corporate, high flyer. And I'm like, no, don't do that. And he's like, and he keeps doing it. He walks towards me and he goes, you keep telling me you want to go into the corporate field, right? And I said, yeah, I feel I got value to shift and change lives. And he said, that's how you'll look to them. You'll speak a whole new language and no one will understand you. So until you change the language, you won't change the outcome. And my mind was blown at that moment. I said, from this point onwards, I need to shift something. And I said, what would be your recommendation? He goes, you gonna, you shoulda, you coulda, you woulda. So it was at the simplest form. And then I realized that, once I came home and dealt with athletes, soldiers, corporates, everyday people, and I'm talking everyday people across all that board, I realized that it was how we spoke to ourselves that we became. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. And instead of saying, what gap have I identified in that I can't do this, well, then I should acquire the knowledge. What's the reframing of that sentence to reframe your brain and the patterns that you respond from? And that basically became, as I said, a module through my thing. And I can't share enough with people how much reframing a sentence, even if me and you were conversating, I said, I hope I could, hopefully that will happen. I said, actually, that's going to happen. So that's a change and shift. And that belief, if you do that over and over and over again, that creates a belief within yourself, because what you tell yourself, you become. So if I'm not good enough and you say, hey, Morgs, come past, let's do something around life, business. It might even be for a coffee. You won't even believe that you feel that you'll fit in with society. So therefore, I'm not going to, I don't know, I don't know if I can wear the right clothes. And then we go into paralysis analysis and it shuts us down. I'm overthinking every single thing. Morgs, do you want to come for coffee? Oh, no, what's he going to wear? Am I going to look good standing next to Michael? He's got a great body or something of that nature, rather than focusing on ourselves. Just grab that sentence that comes up, even in that space, I'm not good enough. Well, then what is the gap that you've identified? That's a strength. You just identified a gap that you'd like to fill for yourself, and reframing the sentence or changing the language to change the outcome is just a tool that gets overlooked so much, that has such high value towards changing and saving and empowering your own life.
100%. Jeff, knowing you and me both grew up on the hard streets of Sydney and have our rough past, how would you define that has made you the man that you are today?
I'd even and I love that you did that. So everyone, back on the last question, I grew up in a land of opportunity. And then I'd shift, because especially if we grew up in Redfern and areas that are known to, nothing comes from there as such. So the expectations are very low. And the back end of that question, sorry, Mickey.
It's more like, how would you define your upbringing and how you've don't worry, we can edit this out, but Jeff, how would you define the sort of person you are from your past and how you grew up? You and me both growing up on the hard streets of Sydney.
Yeah, I definitely, once again, the change of language to change the outcome, it was a land of opportunity. And that means that everything that happened to me back in my old self actually happened for me. What was the lesson that became a blessing from growing up in that area? We're grateful for the simplest things. We didn't have everything. So when I get one thing, and it might be food, people don't understand. On a Friday night, I opened the fridge. It was payday. My dad was a gambler. My mother was drinking at the time. I wouldn't have the food that a normal kid in a normal average house probably has, right? And in general, I'm grateful now for the simplest things of that nature. Everything is an opportunity. Even or what we deem as our past being stressful, painful, filled with heartache, those lessons become blessings. What do you learn from that relationship? Relationship's an easy one. You've been in a relationship, someone's cheated on you or treated you wrong. What did you learn so you don't step back into that same space? And once you do that, you earn something. You learn and earn that allows you to step into a better space. And then you can start to form a boundary around that space that's filled with everything that you've learned, so you never go back into the space and do it again. The only way that won't happen is when you don't work on yourself, or you don't have that commitment to yourself, and your boundaries are down, and that space is a semicircle, and everyone just walks in through that front door and they treat you how they want to treat you. And usually, if you're operating at a level where you haven't done the work on yourself, let's say it's a level 2, and I mean that respectfully, we're all human beings, we all bleed the same blood. But at level 2, you don't have boundaries, you don't have values, you don't have respect for yourself. And guess who's going to come through that door? Everyone that's built of the same nature, looking to survive in that space rather than thrive in that space. Very powerful little reframe on that whole brain around opportunities in life that happen for you, not to you.
100%. Jeff, how important is it for someone to be living their purpose in life?
Imagine jumping into your car and you love hearing whatever music it is, right? And I come in, I turn on the total opposite music, I pump it up, and you've got a 6-hour trip with me. Straight away, you're sitting in misalignment to yourself. And most people will just go through life and sort of accept, I've got to get a job. And usually they'll get a job to make sure they pay their bills, rather than saying, what was the purpose of my life? What is the meaning of life to you? What do you want to get out of life? And once you understand that question, your actions are intentional and directional towards the roadmap of the life that you truly want. But we don't sit with that. What is your vision, purpose, and why to life? What is your roadmap? So I call it your GPS to life. People just don't turn on their GPS to life. But you go from point A to point B. It's 5 hours away. You've never been there before. You jump in your car, seatbelt on, start the car. GPS, I'm going from A to B, and that's what will happen. But why do we not do it in life? So you'll go out and you go straight ahead here, toxicity, left here, happiness, straight here, stress, right here. Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're wondering why you're built that specific way. All you're doing is managing these spot fires. Literally, imagine a whole bunch of spot fires. You got the fires, you're putting this one out, and because you're not conscious, now you got to put out this one because you invited that person in without those boundaries. Next one, you're in an environment where I've turned the music on for the next 6 hours and you're not happy, and that's causing you that constant. It's like an earthquake's happening constantly within your life, and you're like, oh, what's going on here? And then we wonder why we're not getting out what we want within our life because we're consuming our time, energy, and effort. I call it putting teeing off into life. Draw that circle, that's a golf ball. Bang, you smash that golf ball into life. And when I smash it out onto that fairway, I know what I want out of that life. I know where I want to go within that life. And I'm intentional and directional. Now, if I haven't practiced that and I haven't committed to that, I haven't taken one step today, 0.1% to be better tomorrow, then I'm not going to hit the ball straight down that runner. It's going to go over there and I'm going to cause stress. I might go over there, hit somebody and cause them stress. And now I'm built up everything that I don't want within my life. So be intentional and directional around those things you want within your life. And understand that getting up on a Sunday, 7 degrees, early hours of the morning on a public holiday and doing this sort of stuff is around our passion. We love changing, saving, empowering lives. This isn't work to us. This is our passion. So what will happen from this, the value and benefit from this, will be seen by someone who says, hey, Jeff, Mickey, we love what you do. Come into this space and help us create a high-performing space or a space with less stress or more happiness or fulfillment. And that allows them to get the outcomes that they want based around what they're trying to achieve within their life. I'll ask everybody out there, how much is that worth? How much is inner peace worth? How much is success your definition? How much is your quality of life, independence, not being on medication? So I want to make sure my intentions around the direction, let's just say those are a beautiful relationship, values, morals, beliefs, respect, effective communication. So those things are $1 million, $1 billion gifts to ourselves that we don't work on and we just let it sit there. You go, let it gather some dust and we'll grab it another day. Be intentional, be directional, hit that ball down the runway when you tee off into life and watch what happens within your life. I guarantee everything that you want within your life will start to happen. And it won't happen quickly. Everything's the marathon of life. Commit to yourself. You're worth it.
I love that, man. I love it. Jeff, knowing we're all energy, vibrating off frequency and energy, how important is it for our leaders today to turn up with that high energy to influence their team?
Absolutely. To be able to perform at that level, you got to think about, let's say it was a professional sporting team. The team doesn't care about your relationships. The team doesn't care that your family's sick. And to be able to do that, I had to go back and look at things. And once again, when someone passes in my family, I know this might sound crazy to some people, but I say, yeah, to myself, let this be the reminder that life is fickle and life is beautiful, and cherish every single breath you get in these 86,400 seconds every single day. They are opportunities. And this is a reminder that don't just waste it. And that allows you to perform at an absolute level that you never thought possible, which means I'll bring the energy. And I'll give you the greatest example. My 2016, 2018, my sister committed suicide. I'm about to walk on stage. I don't know. And I remember getting a text saying, have you heard about your sister? And I was like, what about my sister? And I looked down and I had this conversation really quickly with this person. And I found out that my sister, as I'm about to walk out on stage at the ICC down at Darling Harbour, big conference, and those that were there, if they see this, they go, oh my God, I can't believe he even spoke. But I went out and I sat there and it hit me when it happened, and I still feel the emotion internally of this happening. But I went there with the intentions to impact and empower other people. I also then, when this happened, I said, you know what, you've got the opportunity to represent Aboriginal people. There's a whole heap of doctors, surgeons, and go out there and you crush this so hard that you stand tall for every Aboriginal warrior that fought for our people. And I mean that respectively. Watch Australian Wars, you get the understanding of what I'm talking about, by Rachel Perkins on SBS On Demand. But in general, what it does, it built me into this. It's happening for me. This is an opportunity. You're going to walk out on that stage and you're going to represent yourself, your people, and show people that you can. And I spoke about my story of being locked up and who I used to be and now who I am. And by the end of that thing, everyone was standing up, clapping. And to me, I spoke probably the best I'd ever spoken in my life, because I was thinking, you represent your sister out there, you represent yourself, you represent your culture, but you represent life. Life's precious, man. We've got the opportunity. This is a gift to be able to breathe every single day. See, here, I'm blessed. There's other people that can't. So I'm telling myself these things, Mickey, as I'm walking out on stage, and I go out and I hit that with so much gusto. No one to this day would have known unless they watch this. They go, oh my God, I can't believe I was in that. He actually crushed it, because I had my sister's spirit in me. I had other people's families behind me talking about well-being. I had people that were going through mental health struggles in me when I stepped on that stage, because these surgeons, they're busting their chops off every single night. They're working themselves into the ground. They don't see their families as much. So I'm giving it back to them in tonloads and saying, how can we get that balance back within your life so that life is just as precious as you tell us it is when you make that cut or whatever it is within that person. And then, I walked off that stage and I had that same energy, and no one would have known that my sister had just committed suicide 10 minutes prior to that. And I'd found out, so it's, you've got to bring that energy, and that energy comes from how you're built as a person with the vision, purpose, and why of the greatest version of yourself. And once you do that, you just operate from it, even in your darkest days. Even in your darkest days, you put one brick in: commitment, dedication, perseverance, and so forth. And over time, that just builds you into someone who operates like that at the drop of a hat. And, the greatest way to think about it, if you go to war and someone starts shooting you, I heard Ant Middleton talk about this from SAS Australia. He said there becomes a threshold where I just don't think about what I'm doing. I'm in survival mode, and if they're shooting at me, I'm going to do what I need to do. When we operate from that level, on an everyday level, I've got to do what I want to do around the intentions of what I'm teeing off into life. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to operate from such a level you probably haven't thought of, maybe haven't seen in your environment, and all of a sudden you become that beacon for everybody to understand, to believe and achieve anything that they want within their life. And if I can do it after 20 years of jail and work with, people like the Department of Defence, Ministry of Health, these high standards, all these major brands, organisations, not just here in Australia, globally, then why can't you do what you want to do? And it's just how you're built, and reframing those sentences, changing the language, having your vision, purpose, and why in your weekly planner. So 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., the commitment is to better myself. PD, I call PD. And then BD, it might be business development. The greatest business is yourself. Are you doing something to better yourself? Is it a course? Is it a podcast? Is it something, a book you're reading? Is it being in proximity of power? Nick is a millionaire. I want to become a millionaire. If I'm hanging around you and 4 other millionaires, I'll be a millionaire. Back in the day, I was hanging around 4 other bank robbers. I was a bank robber. Make sure you understand what circles you're in, those sorts of conversations. And when the opportunity comes up, no matter what happens, you'll step on that stage and you'll blurt out everything that you are within inside yourself, because the alignment's there of who you truly are. And each lesson is a blessing. Even then, I'll take every single day and be glad that I'll have the skill set to be able to help someone else's family and maybe prevent something that goes on or in the thoughts of somebody else who didn't have what my brother and sister had or somebody else's family had. Priceless.
Jeff, I didn't know that about your past, man, and it just makes me even a bigger fan of like the resilience you show. I guess that will lead into my other question is how important is it for a leader to express emotional intelligence in their leadership roles?
Absolutely, because once again, if you're built wrong, you'll respond from what you know. And if what you know is built into your limbic brain and that comes from an experience of trauma or stress or heartache or pain, you're going to come out with anger. Yeah, someone cuts you off in traffic. Back in the day, I was built where violence was the first response. I'll be like, yeah, someone, get out and I'll give you everything. I didn't care if someone was looking. I say, what are you looking at too? Because I was built from anger from my parents not loving me in my eyes, and F the world was the attitude, and had nothing to do with the world. It was all about me and how I was built. So that emotional IQ is so important for people to understand. If you don't start to deal with that and look at how you're built, does it draw a circle, put the emotions that you currently sit with, shut your eyes, visualize it. What am I truly built of? Anger, resentment, and all of the above. And then outside that circle, write out what you want, and then exchange arrows, put those outside the circle, bring those in. And I call it stacking wins. What, when, where, who, why does that happen? What, when, where, who, why? And you can ask the question, what am I doing at that point in time? Where am I? And go through that. And you can change the questions to yourself. And once you do that little process, then you're looking at how you're built and saying, oh, if Mickey says something, I'll smash him. And does it truly serve you? If you've got kids, you're going to go back to jail, or you're going to go back to jail. Even that, I'll reframe that sentence. Going to go back to jail. You've got court cases. It costs me 50 grand for a private lawyer. Where am I going to get 50 grand? Now I've got to be more criminality back in, and I'm taking you back to in the day, to being in a space now where I'm able to operate from or respond from love. And someone cuts me off, I'm like, oh, that person must need that spot more than I do. And the exchange of that work that has to be done in between that space to build that emotional IQ is the realization of what does it truly serve and why were you doing that? And I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be valued. I wanted people to know that I matter, because my parents didn't. And when we do that and we go back, we can say, well, how can you understand that? So I went and understood my parents, and my expectations were that they operated from a Ferrari level, but I'd bought this, some car that was just a $10,000 car, and that $10,000 car was 20 years old and it was just plotting along, but I expected it to look or go like a Ferrari. It just doesn't happen. And then once you sit in that space, all the chemical cesspool of the emotions that you don't want sit with inside yourself, and now you're going to respond from what would you say, Mickey, or this idiot cut me off in traffic, or those sorts of things. That's because you'll build that specific way. You haven't dealt with what I call in your invisible backpack. Unpack that. What were my parents doing? What were the level of their knowledge? What were the level of their motherhood and fatherhood? They were dealing with their own stress. Could they deal with their own stress and trauma? That's how they were doing it. And once I went back and looked at it all, I sat well with myself. But at the time, I didn't understand it because I was too young to, if that makes sense. And we just got to, and that takes a process. It took me 20 years, Mick, to sit in that jail cell on and off, going in and out of jail. And I kept asking myself these questions. Why are you doing this? Is it about the money? And if with the money, what do you want to do with the money? Do you want to just look good? Is that the idea? Or do you want to travel the world? Do you want to help your kids? What do you want to do? Buy a house? Those sorts of things. And if so, how come everyone else can buy a house? How come they could buy that? How come I go, so what are they doing that I need to learn to do? Educate myself. So I started to educate myself in custody and read books and surround myself with those corporates within custody and see how they were built, because I didn't get that role modeling. And then I'd learned, I know it sounds weird, but they did have different values compared to someone that grew up in an area like yourself and I. And I learned limitless value from these people and how they were built that I plugged into myself. And that's how go and surround yourself. Tony Robbins, business, learn business. Next person, someone in peace, go and learn from that person in peace. And once you get to that level of vibration, then you're able to respond from a different space and place because now you can manage your emotions.
Yeah. Jeff, I appreciate your time today. And I know it's about 8:30. I got one more short question. I don't want to hold you up too much longer when you need.
Right.
Um, when you think about Jeff, when you think about fulfillment within a busy exec or CEO's life, how do you link that to momentum? Like if they're lagging in areas of their family or their service, and they're just working all the time, how do you link that to momentum?
Yeah, definitely. I ask them why they're doing that. Most of the time, for my family, I'm setting my family up. And I might say, show me your current weekly planner and show me the time you've put aside for your family. And even if they have put it aside, I say, compare it to what you actually done within the workspace. And is that making you happy? And if not, what could we do to change that? And I'll get them to color code it. And that way they can see it in color to themselves, because a lot of people are visual. They'll be able to see if it's all, say it was green for work and it's all green and their family time was this one little yellow blot. I'm like, does that make you happy? You told me you're doing this for your family. I know that you think that, but what do you think your kids? And bringing them to realization through real talk. One thing about growing up in our area I love, I can give it to you straight up. That's how we were. And one thing I've learned in studies and in life is authenticity is everything. And when you tell them people don't do anything until they've heard what they need to hear. And then they're like, shit, I've had the realization, the light bulb moment, just cracked my head open, shone the spotlight in, and now I can act and operate from a different pace and space. If it's you're doing this for the value of yourself and you want to feel that you matter, where did that come from and where did it stem from? Parents didn't make me feel up, so you're repeating the cycle. How did you feel in that process? So taking them through and getting them to see and have that realization of how they're built and what that has done is just being passed on to the next person. You look at athletes, in general, Ronaldo, he's got a son. I have no doubt he ended up playing soccer. Same principles, if it's trauma, if it's a work ethic, but the work ethic's great, right? It's noble and you pay your bills, but are you paying your bills or are you doing it to set yourself up and live life? They're two different conversations as well. And if you live in life, does that mean that you and your family are traveling more or you're able to do more things because you're not stuck in work? And even in that sense, then, what's the majority of your pie? You draw it up and you write it out for me, have a look at your weekly planner, draw it out. That small percentage, that's your family time. And getting them to have that realization visually. If you think it, ink it, which means subconscious to conscious, write it out and start to actually say, what will I do with my family weekly to make them feel what I didn't feel? I didn't feel loved, valued, and cared for. My father was, a high-flying businessman, and he taught me all business, which is great, and set me up financially. But my kids are now the same, and my kid's got a Lamborghini and I bought a house. I don't get it. Why are they using drugs or why are they? And it's like, that they probably didn't. When was the last time you kicked a football or shot a basketball? And they go, I never did that their whole life. I was too busy. I set them up. They got everything. I said they didn't have love. They didn't feel that they were cared for, that they mattered, and that they were valued within their own family home from their mother and father. So they went out and acted out. And people who had this realization and light bulb moment, I said, so now that you've had that, what could we do to start to build that? Just like you to build your business, what's the first step? Actually, I'm going to put, Fridays, that's it. I'm taking them off. And, I've had a group recently to share that nature, 30 in the leadership group who hadn't traveled for 5 years, and they set this business up, worked their asses off. Great, but a lot of them were in broken marriages, and a lot of them were talking to me at the end of this workshop about how their marriage was going to end, their kids are going to be without their father, and you've got to have that realization. Until you sit with that, think it, ink it, and then start to put that out visually for them, you'll never ever see it. A thought doesn't become an action. And the greatest way to think about it for those that are watching, how long have you been thinking about doing X? Starting your fitness journey, your business, finding happiness, peace. going to a particular travel location, buying a house, but you've never even taken the first step because paralysis analysis or the old same thing, I'm not valued, loved, or cared for. So I'm going to leave you with that little conversation to think about for all those out there, and go down and don't beat up on what you've just identified. Go out and start to ink it. Let that become your mentality creates a better reality. And that means that you've got to shift something to create something new. And excuses are the nails that build a house of failure. If you make an excuse, then it's just not important enough. You haven't prioritized it, especially at a corporate level. I look at it and I go, you'll meet Julia at 9 a.m. for the meeting, Jeff at 10, Mickey at 11, and you'll show up 5 minutes early. Do the same for your family and watch what happens in your life.
Thank you for tuning in today, and I hope you found the discussion useful. Our goal is to positively impact the well-being of 1 million people's lives just like you by sharing the experience and knowledge of some of the world's top performers. So you don't miss out on any key strategies to help you succeed, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. And if you think you may know someone that would benefit from this episode, join us in our mission of impacting 1 million lives and share it with your friends.